Hi, everyone. Welcome to Real Estate Sales Secrets. Hey, today's interview, we have a special guest, one that I've known for many years. It's kind of funny too. We met 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
At various coaching events, because we've been the ones that have been in the business for 20 plus years and still go to all these things and learn and try to grow, which of course is a great lesson in and of itself. But we have a specific scenario that we're going to go over today, and I think it's going to be very valuable for anybody that listens to this now, in the future, whenever. And it's this: if you woke up one day and you found out that you had lost everything, your office is burnt, your car's gone, your computer's gone, everything, you have 30 days to get it all back so that you can feed your family, what would you do? So to answer that today, I am talking with Dean Miller. Dean is up in the wonderful state of New York, has been in real estate for a long time. I'll get to the background in a second, but a massive expert in real estate sales, and I am excited about this. So welcome, Dean Miller.
Thank you, my friend. It's great to see you again. Thanks so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh God, I am honored. It's going to be fun. I've been looking forward to this one a long time.
It should go a lot of different directions. Be careful what you do.
Yeah, no doubt. That's part of the fun, though.
That's right. Amen.
So let's jump in. So first set of questions dealing with some background experience in real estate, so that we can let the audience know who you are, where you're coming from, how you can relate to them, and give us a little bit about your background, your education and experience in real estate.
All right. Well, listen, we can go down a lot of rabbit holes. So when you see me falling in, pull me, grab me by the tail and pull me out.
You got it.
I love what I do. You know, I tell people every day, I don't get out of bed in the morning to make $1 anymore. I get out of bed in the morning to make a difference. And it's really what drives me. And as a result, and a lot of that comes as a result of 20 plus years being in the wonderful world of real estate sales. Let's jump back. You asked about education. I'm a high school graduate. I put myself through tech school to become an audio engineer. I wanted to be in the world of music. That didn't work out because they paid minimum wage, and back in those days, that number started with a 5. I didn't want to be a gopher. So life progressed. I became a dad. I got married. I was working 3 jobs. I've done I had more jobs in any 2-year stretch during the early part of my life than most people have in a lifetime. I worked for a moving company. I owned a mobile DJ business that I ran for 15 years. I managed a record store. I bartended. I DJ'd. Believe it or not, if you saw me physically, I was a bouncer. You'd laugh at that. But I was smart. I played the role of the cooler. I wasn't the guy who threw the muscle around. I told the muscle guys where to go.
There you go.
But after becoming a dad and getting married, I realized I needed benefits. So I took a job in the wonderful world of corporate America, working for a credit card company that I won't name, but if you have a red and yellow interlocking circle, that was the company. So I worked in a data center there for 7 years. I got promoted into international sales, where during a 2-year stretch, if you got a credit card from that company, I was the only person in the world who handled the security features for them. So I did distribution of holograms, punch and die sets, mag stripes, plastics, you name it.
Wow.
After 2 years of getting 3.5% raises and $500 a year bonuses, I hit the wall. I said, I'm done. I was out playing golf with a friend of my uncle's, actually, who owned a mom and pop real estate brokerage here on Long Island. Drinking way too much because I'm a bad golfer, so drinking was the way to get through it. And he says to me, you got the gift. You should quit your job and come work for me. And a month went by, and he called me back, and he says, you never responded to my offer. And I said, dude, we were both hammered out of our minds. At least I know I was. I thought you were joking around. And I went and had lunch with him, and he says, a 45-minute lunch. He says, I'm 100% serious. Go get your real estate license. So I thought about it, and then 2 weeks later, I pulled the trigger. I gave a month's notice to their credit card company. This was Halloween, actually, of '97. I had 2 weeks vacation, so I took the 2 middle weeks in November off because I knew I had the vacation time with Thanksgiving, getting those 2 days off. So I was very strategic. Got my license during that time, took the month of December off, and January 3rd of '98, I dove in, and I literally walked into the office. I'm back up a little bit more. After high school, I tried college. I'm a 6-time college dropout. College was not my thing.
Yep.
I like to get my hands dirty, which is why I did the vocational school thing. But I literally walked into my broker's office and he dropped the Sunday New York Times, which at the time was literally the real estate Bible. It was about this thick.
Oh, yeah.
And the white pages. And he says, start calling, see if anybody wants to buy or sell. And if you want a shortcut, go through the Times and look for FSBOs. Quote. And he walked out of the room. Now, here I am 10 minutes into his office. I had no idea what a FSBO was. So I spent 4 hours going through the New York Times. My wrists were black with ink up to above my wrist, looking for FIZBO, FISBO. I had no idea what it was. And after 2.5, 3 hours, I finally said, you know what? I got to suck it up. And I went upstairs and I used a lot of 4-letter words, but to put it nicely, I said, what the hell is a FSBO? And he laughed and laughed and laughed at me. And that was my intro to the business.
Wait a minute, it took you 4 hours or 2.5 hours or so to go and finally ask him that?
Yeah, because I'm stubborn as a mule. I mean, you know a little bit about me, but I'm the kind of guy who says, you throw a challenge at me, I want to figure it out. Like I said, I like to get, the reason why vocational school and audio recording was so good for me was the studio I went and studied under. They gave us the book, which was probably about 1,000 pages.
Yep.
And he handed it to us and he said, okay, now put them back in the corner because every student who's ever come through this school has touched them once. You will never open that book again.
Yep.
Now go into the sound studio and break it.
Yeah. And
that's the way that I learned, break it. That's how you learn things. So that's always been my thing. So, that led me into figuring it out and I humbled up really quick. Yeah. And I dove in. I was a cold calling machine in the beginning. And most of the time had no idea what the hell I was talking about. It was literally fake it till you make it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and that seems to be kind of a standard because there's a ton of training out there and it's interesting what it is. It can be all over the board. So on that note, what kind of formal, or have you ever had any formal education training classes in real estate, or has it all been just on the job and you figured it out?
So I'm the kind, as much as I wasn't a good student growing up, yep. I was okay and the grades came down and I graduated probably somewhere in the mid-70s, I would say. I did graduate. I only had to go to summer school once for algebra, and that was when I was going to a private school where passing was 75 and I got a 74. Yep. That was a summer from hell. But you got to define formal education. I went through the state's minimum requirements here to get my real estate license. I did the same thing 7, 8 years later to get my broker's license. And this was before New York State had doubled their minimum requirements, which was a good thing. I love to learn. So I've traveled the country. I was doing the math the other day. I have literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in 20 plus years. Yeah. Between travel and actual coaching programs and seminars. And I love to learn. I was in my attic the other day. My daughter's getting ready for Christmas, so we got to prep the attic. I must have found 1,000 books up there that I've read, many of which I have multiple copies of downstairs on my desk because I reread a lot of the same books over and over again. Because like anything, you read it the second time, you learn because you have different perspective. Yes. So I don't have any technically formal education. And I'm not one to throw the school of hard knocks around lightly, but I've gone out there and I've made every mistake you could imagine. I've spent a fortune. A lot of what I've spent the money on has had a huge return on the investment for me. Other things, they've failed. They've failed me because I went in with the wrong expectation, thinking somebody could solve things for me. So I don't ever go out looking for the education to find that silver bullet or the magic pill. I am a firm believer in overalls and, go out there and get dirty and do it and fail. But the trick to failing is always fail forward. You're going to get knocked on your ass. That's okay. But if you fall backwards because you get knocked down, you got to flip over and start crawling forward and move forward with everything you do. Yeah. So as long as you have that mentality of fail forward, you're never going to lose. You got it. That's a good book by John Maxwell too, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. That's right. I forgot about that one. That's right. Absolutely. Well, shoot, then let's get started. So, Dean, all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you've lost everything. There's no business there. Your office is gone. Your studio's gone.
You got 30 days to get it back so you can feed your family and do the things that you want to do. What's the first thing you do?
You know, it's funny because there are 2 points, and I don't want to come across as overly dramatic. You look at me, I'm an overweight guy. I've never missed a meal in my life, and I've never been hungry, in the sense that I couldn't find the next meal. But there were 2 points in my career where I did almost file corporate bankruptcy. Once when I became a partner and I owned 2 Remax offices, and didn't prepare myself properly for the business relationship with my partners. And then another point where I just had so much going on in my life and looked one day and said, holy crap, I haven't done a deal in 6 months and I'm 10 plus years into this business. What do I do? But my expenses were still there and we were still writing checks every week to pay people. Everyone talks about going back to the basics. And the reality of it is, as much as I feel this industry needs to change and evolve, it's been too much the same for over 100 years. There is a foundation to business, not just real estate, but to business. So we've got a formula that I've learned through some of my coaching efforts over the years, working with other agents and with coaching programs and having the opportunity to coach and mentor a few agents along the way as well. And we're trying to figure out how to package it. But through my good friend Danny Griffin, he came up with a formula that he referred to as DPPO 20. And what that stands for is very simple. Let's go through what it is. D is for database.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing that you could ever have in this business. And I'll go through my whys and we'll go through each one and then I'll summarize at the end. Building a database is the key to success in any business because you're only as profitable as your database. So without building that database, building that list of people who know, like, and trust you. And the whole goal of building a database is to build that opportunity to get people to know, like, and trust you. So your mom and your wife and your aunts and uncles and your family, they're great, but they're just step one. Now, I always joke, you look at my Facebook feed and the minute my mom comments on anything, the whole feed dies right there.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into consideration. There's only so much they can do and they mean well, I get it, but it's a coincidence because she always runs late to those shows.
Yeah.
But building your database is the key, and there's 1,000 ways to do it. But let's just go through the basics of it first. So your database is the number one thing I would focus on. Within that, you need some kind of CRM system, customer relationship management system, customer retention management, client retention. You've got to look at that very specifically. It can't we don't live in the days of Post-it notes anymore. I mean, I had a Rolodex years ago. Like I said, I'm in this over 20 years. We had a physical Rolodex. We didn't have smartphones. I knew everybody's number. Now I can't even remember my own home number. I tell Siri to find it for me.
I remember my grade school home number, and I don't remember my number now.
Yeah, that's funny because that came up in conversation a couple weeks ago, and I did figure it out, but I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, it was funny because I have a full-time videographer on staff, and we're talking about what kind of production would. Here's the first rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What kind of production? And it's like people need to know your story.
Yeah.
And in my sleep the other night, and I very rarely remember my dreams, I said, all right, we're gonna go shoot a video in front of that old house and walk through my journey.
Nice.
To tell the stories of why I do what I do.
Yep.
So let's get back to the focus here. So building your database is the number one most important thing you can do. And if you had 30 days, I would probably spend the first 10 working only on that. Now, how do you do that? The first P is, so you got database. The next P, the first P is phones.
Yep.
And by phones, we mean communication. And I preface this by saying email is an incredibly powerful tool, but it is not meant to replace the phone. Too many people believe that your direct message, your WhatsApp, your Instagram DMs, your Facebook Messenger, your SMS texting, all that does not replace a conversation. They're supplemental to it. Yeah. Now, if you need to speak to people in a way that they want to be spoken to. You know who Dan Kennedy is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dan is one of the most preeminent copywriters in the world. And if you don't know who he is, the No BS ... book series is his. Each book is better than the next.
Yes,
Dan's preferred method of communication, still to this day, 2019, is fax.
So, Dean, you see all the books over there over my shoulder?
Yeah, I could see a whole series of them.
Those are all Dan Kennedy.
Yep.
That whole 3 shelves.
And he is the epitome of the marketing guru that anybody who seriously gets into this business should spend a lot of time studying, but don't fall down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
Learn and implement and deploy. So so Dan's preferred method of communication is fax. It's the only way to get a hold of him. You have to understand how your target audience wants to be spoken to. And to go back to the database, you need to define who and what your target audience is. You know, are you in real estate specifically, are you focused on a certain geography, a certain town, a certain subdivision, a certain school district, a certain county? You know, here I live in a county of over 1.5 million people. I can't serve all of them. I can drive from corner to corner of it in a couple hours because the wonderful world of Long Island traffic, you can't get anywhere quickly anymore. But you need to know what people's preferred method of communication is, but you need to have a substantial conversation before you can say this is a potential prospect. Until then, they're just a lead. And we look at this and say, okay, leads are anybody who inquires. They raise their hand, they want a free list, they want a free report, they're nosy, and like to, as we refer to it so affectionately, real estate porn. There are so many people out there who just love to look at how many homes are for sale, what's going on, pretty pictures, the HGTV effect. So there's a difference between a lead, a real prospect, you know, a potential prospect, a real prospect, a client, a customer, a client, knowing the difference in each of those stages. That funnel, which is the way we look at things. Everything is a funnel. So building that database is your number one thing. Then communication, phones. You have to make contact. You got to solve a problem for people. The days of me picking up the phone and saying, do you know anybody who wants to buy or sell real estate? No, check, click, 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 next, churn 1,000 calls in the course of a day. And hear every 4-letter word in the book, because here in New York, we don't like to be bothered by people. This is back in the day where people answered their home phone number. So step 2 is working the phones. And by phones, I mean communication. And that could be as simple as just being on all things social media and engaging with people.
Yes.
You know, the next step in the process for us, we refer to as presentations. It's not just the standard listing presentation, buyer presentation, but it's preparing yourself to present yourself to the public. And then the final step is O for offers. You've got to make those offers. And again, related to what we hope to do, making offers on properties, negotiating deals, those kind of offers, but also what kind of offer am I going to make as the agent to the buying and selling public out there, to want to watch what I do. Like I said, I got a full-time videographer on my team right now. Just because I have them and we put together what I think is Class A material doesn't mean people want to see it. So what kind of offer do people want? And we're always talking about, what are we doing as far as reports go that we can distribute to people? What are we doing as far as new content that's coming out that engages with people, that gets to that communication, the quote unquote phones part of the process?
Yep. So you mentioned something right there. So 2 things right there. You mentioned reports and things like that. So you're giving information to people.
Without a doubt. Yeah, we believe in coming from a position of giving.
Yep.
So one of my favorite ways to tell this to people is in my 20 plus years in this business, I have been involved in thousands of transactions. I've had an impact on thousands of families' lives with their buying and selling needs. But during that time, I've literally only sold 7 homes. And when I say that, I've only sold 7 homes because they were all mine. I don't sell homes for people. I facilitate. I'm the conductor in the orchestra. I don't sell it. I don't make the decision on whether or not to accept an offer or counter an offer or raise an offer on the buy side. So I'm very and I hate the fact that I love and hate the fact that my license says salesperson on it, because I love salespeople. It's what this country was built on. You know, Columbus had to sell somebody on giving them money to get over here, and George Washington and company had to sell somebody on funding or creating this revolution. Sales is what everything comes down to. Just anybody who's a parent, look at your children. They all go through this phase where they ask the most annoying yet most powerful question in the world: why?
Why?
And you give them an answer and they say why, and they give another answer and you say why. It's part of my onboarding process with agents. We've done it in the past where we need to lighten the mood. And I say, Okay, so why do you want to join our company? And they tell us, and they'll give us an answer. Well, I think you guys are great. You're the greatest brokerage in the history of the world. Uh, okay, why? Well, because you do this and that. Okay, why? Because of this. And it gets to the root of Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why,
Yep.
is one of my all-time favorites. I
Yep.
tear it apart chapter by chapter constantly. And I love that question. So to circle back around, we're here to provide value to people. We're giving away our best information for free every single day. It's why we do videos. It's why we do written. It's why we're creating multiple websites and why we have multiple accounts on the majority of the social media platforms. We want to give people value so that they could see that we are truly a trusted resource.
Perfect. Perfect. So take that back to building that database.
Yep.
Where would you start going if you're starting it from scratch and you're doing it? Do you have a specific target that you're looking for, target audience? Where are you going to go?
For the new agent, and I'll refer to him as the new agent, but that agent that just fell into your market after going broke and you've got 30 days to rebuild it.
Yep.
It's pick up the phone and tell everybody you know, hey, this is what I'm doing. I would love your help and support. If there's anything I can do to be a benefit to you in any way, please call on me. And recreate that bond, even if it's with mom and dad. Because I got news for you, mom and dad have neighbors who are going to list with the companies that you don't want, that you're not working with. So you've got to build that list of trusted resources and trusted allies and trusted potential clients. Start there. I've got an agent that I'm onboarding now, and I told her what I want to do is put together a letter campaign for you. Here's your reintroduction to them. I know it's been now you can call them at the same time, because when you look at marketing, it's going to take 8, 9, 10 touches before they even acknowledge what you do. It's not their job to remember what we do. I hear from agents all the time. I can't believe that my cousin listed his house with that guy. Well, when was the last time you spoke to your cousin? First of all, when was the last time you spoke to him?
Yeah.
When was the last time you reminded him of what you do? And not just, hey, if you want to sell, please call me. I'm the best. It's why are they not on your mailing campaign? And by mailing, I mean any distribution source. Why are you not sending them updates on what's going on in their market? It costs you $1 a month if you get really expensive postcards.
Yeah.
But if you package it in a way that's of value to them. So we just started. We're using some AI software to figure out who the most likely next round of sellers are in a small batch of towns, and we're testing it out. And there's a lot of analytics that go into it, and we pay $3-4 grand a year for the platform, and then a couple $100 a month to figure out how to use it. But we're looking at sellers and saying, okay, these are people who are likely to sell in the next X amount of days to years. Let's target those people and let's provide them value. Let's become a community resource. So what are we doing? We send them 2 reports. One, here's all the stats of what's happening in your neighborhood, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And they're getting something from us monthly. But we're also sending them a monthly update of all the homes that have listed and sold. And it's very condensed down, but it says, you may have a 12-bedroom mansion and you may have a 3-bedroom bungalow, but knowing what's happening in the market, staying aware of that is important. Selling a home is not an event, it's a process.
Yes.
And like we were talking before the call about some of our lead generation systems, we've all focused on buyers for so long, but what's the biggest expense to that? Not the cost of generating the lead, the cost of waiting for 2 years, 3 years. I showed a house to a woman 2 weeks ago who's been in my system for 5 years. We've had a couple conversations. She's not serious at the time, but she wanted to educate herself. In the beginning, it was, again, I'll refer to it as real estate porn, but then all of a sudden she had a need, sent us a message, updated her criteria. We changed our messaging to her. It's not, hey, hope you're still enjoying the site. It's, hey, you inquired about something. What can we do to help you out? Not sell you. What can we do to answer questions, help you out? What questions do you have about that house?
Well, you brought up a great point right there. So she's been in your system for 5 years.
Yep.
How many agents have you ever seen that actually keep up with people and put them in a system and have that type of follow-up?
The days of the 80-20 rule are over. It's more like the 95-5.
Yep.
Not enough agents, and it's not to knock them. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
because to talk about another, and I'll lead back to another point that we talked about just prior to the call, they're doing what they're doing, and they're doing it off of muscle.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight my way and push that rock up the hill and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, as opposed to maybe we need to get a dolly to help us push this flat thing up the, this 1,000 pounds of bricks up the hill.
Yeah.
It's just as much strength is required to push it. But if you could leverage it, hey, guess what? It's that much easier to get to the top of the hill.
Heck yeah.
So too many brokers will tell their agents what they need to do, but they won't really guide them on how to do it. And that's kind of the heart and soul of our brokerage. We'll show everybody what we do. We'll tell everybody why we do it. We'll even show you when we do it, and we'll show you some of how we do it. If not all of how we do it, to be honest with you, because I know 1 out of 100 might actually act on it, and 1 out of 1,000 will actually succeed. So I don't feel that I'm giving away trade secrets.
Yeah. No.
But you need to have systems in place. This whole DPPO 20 thing is a system. And what's the 20 mean? It's 20 hours a week. So if you spend an hour a day on each of these 4 things, that's 5 hours. Well, if you can work half a day, you go part-time, right, and do this 4 hours a day, you're going to go out and make yourself 6 figures.
Yeah.
Now, here in Nassau County, we're one of the most expensive counties to live in the country because everything costs a fortune. But even there, $100,000 a year is still nothing to sneeze at. You can afford a house.
Sure.
You might not be putting your kids through the most expensive private schools in the world, but part of why it's expensive here, our public schools are really damn good in most of the areas. So I could go off on a rant like crazy. It's
Okay.
part of what my video crew loves is when I just go off.
Heck yeah. We may save that for the after part then.
Yeah. I got a bottle of bourbon in the other room. Get me started on that.
Ah, there you go. Perfect. I may have to just come on up then, and we can do this sitting there in your room. So let me ask you this then. So you've got this piece, that database, that CRM going, and you're building it. What's the second thing? Where would you go next?
You build your CRM, and then you start working those phones. You start working that communication. How do you build an audience today? It's not just picking up the phone and cold calling people. It's putting information out there through social media, through, if you have, depending on your avatar, and that's another thing that you need to define is not only where you work and who you want to work for, but what that client, that ideal avatar is. I know my ideal client for me is probably someone who's in their mid-20s to mid-30s, who bought their first home, 3 to 7 years ago, and they're looking to move up and stay here on Long Island, not just leave. We will service anybody because our systems are good enough to do that. But our ideal is to say, how do you move from that first home that you bought and fixed up when you had no money, but you got tired of paying the landlord because you were smart. You fixed the house, and now here you are, you're getting married, or you're having your second kid. You're outgrowing the house and you want to stay here. Yeah. So that's my ideal avatar. So we go from the database part of it, and you put people in there, and you have to nurture these people. You have to develop relationships, get to know, like, and trust. That comes from communication. So in the old days, before social media and the internet existed in the form that it does, that meant getting on the phone, going to networking meetings, going to Chamber of Commerce, being involved in every local event. And that's what made real estate agents special, was that they knew their communities.
Yes.
Now it's so easy to do that. And I know everything about every town around here. All I got to do is say, "Hey, Siri." Yeah. And I put her in Do Not Disturb. Normally when I do that, she yells at me during these things.
Coming up.
I'm learning. And I have Alexa unplugged in the other room, so she doesn't
there you go.
back at me anymore.
Well, you mentioned something earlier too that you're going to do, and Corey is getting you to do that, and he's welcome to make comments over your shoulder too if he wants to, because I know he's listening. But you mentioned your origin story and getting that out there.
Yep.
What's that process, and what's that do for you?
I look at a lot of people and say, like, I love watching these business shows. I was watching The Profit last night, and I love how they tell the story, the backstory of a small business owner before. So I'll walk you through the episode I watched last night. There's a place called Dante's in New Jersey. It's a little Italian restaurant. Dad and the son owns the business. Dad and the same son own the building. Back on 9/11, the wife slash mom died at the Trade Center. And he walked you through this whole story. And it wasn't meant to be a sob story by any stretch of the imagination, but it walked you through the journey. Why did dad take the money that he received as a result of the wrongful death and give it all to his kids? What did they do with it? Now, why is dad a royal pain in the ass to the son? Because he's micromanaging the business. And they talked about that journey. And I think, I looked at it and said to my wife, I said, damn, if we ever get on the other side of the bridge in Jersey, we need to go stop there. And I think about that when I watch shows like this is, why do I want to do business with these people? Well, they have a story that's relatable to me. Here we are 18 years later, and I'm a guy who was, like I said, I was a DJ for 15 years. For 8 or 9 of those years, I did an annual Christmas party at Windows on the World, which was the restaurant on the top of the World Trade Center.
Yep.
I know that view very well, and I lost a few friends on that day, and this is not meant to be a woe is me thing, but telling that story, it resonates with people. And I haven't been back to what's affectionately referred to as ground zero since it happened. I was there in the summertime of '01, but I have not been back there since. And I have no desire. And my dad actually works there. So he's there, he's still there 2, 3, 4 days a week sometimes, in one of the new buildings. So, it stirs a lot of memories for me. And sorry, I'm getting myself off track here.
Yeah.
But what's the story behind it, and telling that story. So, going back to the Prophet, I looked at that and said, I would love to do business with these people. And if they're close to me, I feel like I know them from watching them. I like them because of their story, and they package it in a way that I think I could trust them. Now, if they come and put garbage on my plate and throw it at me, well, then that's on me for being foolish, and them for not knowing who their audience is.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring this up, because I think that what we're seeing in the real estate world now is a lack of agents being real and showing the public who they are.
Yep.
All we see is the ad with the agent sitting in the room with the big desk, or standing by the spiral staircases, or outside of the $1 million home, and we never get to know and meet and get to know who they are.
Yeah. Well, we've come a long way from these pictures.
Yeah.
Everybody's on their phone giving the thumbs up. So we have evolved a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're right. Look at me. I'm in jeans and sneakers every day.
Yeah.
I left the corporate world because I didn't like so much about it. Listen, I could wear a suit with the best of them. I could wear a tux with the best of them.
Yep.
There's a time and a place for it. And, I'm not going to walk out and meet a new client dressed like this. Let's face it. But online, they're going to see who I am.
Sure.
And if they're somebody who's comfortable in a suit, well, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So I'll wear the suit to sit alongside them, to create that level of comfort for them and that level of trust. But with the world being what it is, with the state of the internet being what it is, it's hard to be a fraud. If if you do this, it's hard to be a fraud. Yeah. People are going to see me. People know I've got this accent. I never lived in Brooklyn, but everybody seems to think I talk like somebody from Brooklyn. Granted, my whole family's from there, but I was born in Queens and moved over the Nassau County line to the New York City suburbs when I was 10.
Yeah, that's right.
I am who I am. So we like the idea of telling stories so that people can relate to us, and it's not to pander to them, but it's because we want to do business with people who are like us. Yeah. I want to sell every house on Long Island. I would love nothing more than to have 100% market share. Ain't gonna happen. I can't control one little town, but you want to do business with people who are of like mind. And for me, it's not just about the attire, but I do a lot of charity work, and I kept it hidden for years. Now I talk about it because as a result of talking about it, we can say instead of raising $10,000 this year, we're going to raise $20,000 for this fund. And we just, my oldest daughter, who's 25, who lives in the suburbs of Chicago, she's been doing fundraising for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for, it's 10 years now. or she's been working with them for, I think it's 9 years she's been doing it. And you know, Dad's her biggest supporter. So when she set her goal for 10,000 this year, I yelled at her. And I said, raise the damn goal. And she raised it to 12. And I yelled at her again. She raised it to 15. And Dad got involved and said, okay, what are we going to do to make something special? And we are literally dollars away from hitting 20,000 this year.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
So, you know, it's why it's a big part of why I do what I do. My goal is to get to the point in life where I donate the equivalent of $1 million in cash every year. I would love nothing more than to be that guy who could walk into a place that needs it with a suitcase, drop the suitcase and walk out. But there's leverage in doing it and power in doing it in other ways.
Yes.
I don't do it for the recognition, but I've come to realize that I do have a voice. And every agent out there, you know, to stick to this industry needs to have a voice. What do you stand for? Who are you? Why should people give a rat's ass about who you are and what you do? And why should they worry about paying you a ridiculous commission as opposed to the next knucklehead who's in the building next door? I literally could walk out the front door of my building right now or back door and see 5 different real estate companies, not including my own.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you're talking about being real. You're talking about having that voice that sets you apart, and you're talking about building your value. And
yep.
Most agents are competing on price.
Oh man, I used the line yesterday, and the context will come back to me. But I said to somebody yesterday, cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
Absolutely.
And that should be, if not the first line, the second line in any sales training course in the history of the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
Spot on. Spot on. We've let all the Zillows and all of the other companies take over that process and kind of abdicated our control of our local market.
Yep. Yeah, you'll never hear me complain about, and I'll use the actual names, but you'll never hear me complain about Zillow and Trulia and StreetEasy or Realtor.com, which we as professionals don't own that name. That's owned by a privately owned company.
Yep.
Due to some mistakes from what I consider to be mistakes from the powers that be who manage our industry for us in all too many inappropriate ways at times. But
that's a whole different. That's a whole different.
I digress. And I have not stepped up to be involved in those boards and those. So I don't have a right to complain about it. But we have not delegated control. We've abdicated control to outsourcing companies. And my only dislike of Zillow isn't for what they do. They're a brilliant marketing agency that's crushing the real estate industry at its own game. Yep. My only dislike of Zillow is that I didn't get a chance to buy when they originally went public, because I'd be a much wealthier person today than I was had I had the chance to do it. You know, from that perspective, I spend a lot. A lot of my actual investments are in competing real estate brands. I mean, Realogy and Zillow and you name it. There's money to be made. There's money to be made off the backs of those companies.
Yeah, yes, there are. Absolutely. There are.
But yet again, I digress. So, you know, giving away that control, it goes to the other comment we talked about is, you know, well, I'm doing this because my broker told me to do it. I work for him or her. No, every agent out there is the boss. Those brokers work for you. You do not give up X% of your commission. They take it from you because you're paying them. Make sure you're getting a return on that investment. Yes. That's one of the, you know, if we go outside of the context of what we're talking about today, that would be one of the number one tips I would tell people is you need to interview your broker. Yeah. Because you don't work for them. And depending on your scale, your split, whatever your comp package is, you need to know that whatever you're giving up out of your hard-earned commission, they're earning every penny of that. And if they're not, you need to get your ass out of there and go find someone else. Yeah. It's part of why I became a broker.
Absolutely. Well, 99% of the agents are 1099 agents. That means that it is commission only, and they're taking a split. You're right. So what are they doing to earn it? And so many, you know, I had that conversation with somebody earlier because they were talking about it and said, you know, there are 2 big questions when you're choosing where to go. And this is just my opinion. I look at who is the company working for? Is their main focus themselves, or is it their agents? Who is their client? You know? And then the second is, who are the people there? Because you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Amen.
And it, you know, the sign is not what makes that. It's the people there and what their focus is. So that's
Listen, I worked for the Gold Jacket Company for a long
Yeah.
time. I worked at and owned franchises with the Red, White, and Blue Balloon, and had a wonderful experience with all of them. I actually worked in the corporate office for the New York region at Remax for a couple years,
Oh,
and it was an incredible experience. I learned a lot from it. I didn't grow my business as a result of being there, though. I
yeah.
grew my business as a result of what I did within those four walls, not with the four
Right.
walls, not what they told me to do.
You got
Never
it.
had a balloon. Never had a balloon on the front. A hot air balloon on the front lawn at any of my open houses, or
Yeah.
on the roof, or anything else.
That's right.
In all my years, I could count on one finger how many actual listings I got as a result of the brand that I was hanging my umbrella under.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
are the brand. Build
Yes.
that, and that's really what
Exactly.
this whole process is about. Building your database is about brand awareness. Getting on the phone is about brand awareness. Making presentations and providing value in the form of content to people is brand awareness. Making offers to people, it's all brand awareness. You are the brand. So I've recently rebranded my company. So I've been independent now. I want to say it's 7 years, I think, 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
We were Miller Realty Group of Long Island for the longest time.
Yep.
Because it just was what we came up with. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we said, all right, we've got to rebrand. It's too long. It's the logo is dated based on my standards. The old core values have not been updated. We didn't know what our vision and our mission were. So we went through the exercise, and in the naming process, we came up with a million things. And we said, okay, the big picture mission for this company is to help 10,000 families in 10 years.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to list 10,000 homes or sell 5,000 homes and 2 families. We're going to have an impact on housing.
Absolutely.
I've always had an affection, this being the day after Veterans Day. Sorry if I'm throwing your scheduling off if you don't post it today. But I've always had an appreciation for all things military and all people military. And there's a homelessness problem in this country for veterans. And there are reasons behind it in some cases, but in other cases, there are foolish reasons. We can't necessarily fix the PTSD problem and the mental health issues. And it's part of why I've reevaluated part of my philanthropic efforts is getting vets off the street isn't necessarily the thing we need to solve. It's mental health in many cases.
Right.
But for those who just have a financial problem because they fell on hard times and don't have a mental health issue, these guys deserve a home. They were living in tents without a roof over their head for the longest time so that we could sit here and, play Candy Crush on our goddamn phone in our $400 shoes and, $1 million houses.
Mm-hmm.
These guys deserve a goddamn home. Sorry, I digress. But that was part of the 10,000 helping 10,000 families kind of mindset.
Yeah.
So we looked at we reestablished our mission. We reestablished our vision. We are still working we have basic core values in place, but we're working to put that into a format that's not only easy for us to share, but understandable for those who grace us with their presence. And that goes for our clients as well. It's not just for our agents and our employees. Our client, we talked about that avatar earlier. Yeah. You got to have those commonalities and core values,
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to be fat, lazy, and take from people, I'm probably not going to relate well with them, even if they hire me.
Right.
So let's rip the Band-Aid off before it gets painful and move on and work with people who see value in us.
Spot on. You got it.
Yeah.
So we've got just a few more minutes, and I'm going to give you one more question here on this. So you're in that, and we'll go back to the 30-day piece of it as well. So we've got our database, we're building our database. Where else would you suggest, and what would you do to go out and get business immediately?
Well, the most logical place for me, you're building your database. What's one of the easiest ways to do that? 2 people who want to buy today without buying Zillow leads, to go back to that. How about this? There's a lot of inventory out there that's not moving.
Yeah.
How about you go promote the hell out of an open house and hijack somebody else's open house? Ask them, hey, that property's not moving. It's been on the market for 11 months. And from what you're telling me, you haven't even gotten a single showing. How about you let me go out there and promote an open house? and meet real people, get belly to belly, face to face with real people who are actually out there looking to buy a house. Even if only 2 show up and one of them comes along with an agent, guess what? You just spent 2 hours at an open house and maybe 30 minutes setting up and 30 minutes tearing down. You spent 3 hours of your life to find somebody who's we would hope is ready, willing, and able to buy a new house. Oh, wait, that's your responsibility to go find out if they are. Go through the process. Work with them. Give them value. If you don't have any clients, guess what? You can give this one potential client 100% of your efforts. And if you do that, you know what they're going to do? When they buy a house, they're going to become a raving fan. And they're going to give you testimonials to share. And they're going to preach your message from the highest mountaintop. Best way to build a database, go do open houses every opportunity you have.
Awesome.
And go there with the intention of not necessarily selling that house. If it happens, that's a byproduct of it. But go out there with the intention of helping to sell that house by meeting multiple people, so that A, if you're going to work on this for the seller, you could at least leverage those 3 against each other to negotiate the price up. Or this house doesn't work for any of those 3 people. Let me create a valuable relationship with them so that I can help them go purchase something else.
Yeah, spot on, spot on.
And now build your database of past clients. How's that?
There you go. There you go. That's always a nice one as well.
It's what it should always be about.
Absolutely. So Dean, we're coming up on that time. So what else would you, any other tips, anything that I haven't asked that you want to add and throw in here?
You know, this is, in my opinion, one of the greatest businesses in the world. This is not my job. This is my business. That's what I would tell everybody who gets into it. You are an independent contractor. You need to run the business of you. So I changed the name of my company to Dean Miller Real Estate because it's easy for me to remember, because I got a lot on my mind. I don't have to think about it. But we did that for a couple of reasons. I want everybody who comes here to understand that I run a business. And you join me, you have to run the business of Bob Smith Realtor Incorporated. So, you know, I've been blessed. I've got my hands in a lot of different things over the years, and I've invested, and I've run different companies of all types, and invested in companies of all types, and I've been very fortunate. But we now look at everything and say, here's the umbrella. The umbrella is Dean Miller Incorporated, or whatever we choose to call it.
Yeah.
From there, I have Dean Miller Real Estate, which is one of my revenue producing companies. We're talking about starting an actual media company. So whatever we call that, you know, the Dean and Corey Media Company will be another vertical. I've got investments in some tech companies that you and I talked about earlier. That's another vertical. And that's me being an active investor in those companies. I've got my stock portfolio. That's another business that I run. So you got to realize you're running the business of you, which means you got to understand the brand of you and go back to those things we talked about earlier. And, you know, I'll put the cheap plug out there. Any of your listeners can always find me, social media at Dean Miller Real Estate, or Dean at Dean Miller Real Estate. You could always find me. I'm more than happy to have these conversations, because the more opportunities I get to share, the better I become at what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, sir, I am greatly appreciative and grateful for you, and such an awesome, just awesome.
I appreciate that. Rob, when you came to me with the ask, I immediately said yes before I even finished reading it and responded, because I love doing this stuff. And like I said, my goal is to be a resource in the effort to make a difference for other people. And I hope every time I open my mouth, I get to have an impact on one person, and that's all that really. And you know, it's I forget the word, but you know, I just love having the opportunity to do this, because I'm listening to you ask these questions, and in my head I'm saying, okay, we can make this little tweak to this. Let's try this. Let's A/B test that. So I'll have about 10 minutes worth of note taking and implementation just from talking with you that will have an impact on me in some way, shape, or form. And I thank you for that. So,
well, brother, it's been my pleasure, and I know that you know, together we can make a difference.
Yep.
And we can help people, and help people that truly want to succeed in this industry and in this business.
That's right.
So I am grateful for you, and thanks to Corey for letting you do it. I appreciate that
I,
too.
I appreciate it. Keep raising the standards out there. I love what you're doing. I'm here to support in any way possible. Whatever you need, you know, I'm a resource for you. So
You got it.
thank you so much for letting me do this and being a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, Dean Miller, thank you again for sharing with us, and thanks for all of the realtors who watch this at some point in their career. Hopefully, it will be many of them. Hopefully, they'll reach out to you, and if you guys need to get in touch with Dean, please do that. I will put links to him directly in the show notes and everything, and I'm sure you'll hear from him again. So, Dean, thank you very much, sir. You make it an awesome day.
Same to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy.